Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me and being here. This is your guidance for the week of January 17, 2022. Now, this might be one of those weeks where we do need a lot of guidance because the sky is so very tense, especially emotionally and also mentally. And also, unfortunately, especially at the beginning of the week, this energy is where both the mind and the feeling sabotage us at the same time. So we may feel like being stuck between the hammer and the anvil, and there is no way out, especially that our usual bypassing techniques, may it be psychological, emotional, spiritual, even mental, might not really be working very well, or in some cases, they might even make things a little bit worse. So, this is the kind of situation where having friends, having strong emotional connections with people who you trust might be one of the very few cures for this energy. Also, this is where any kind of source of serotonin, so quite a physical energy, a chemical energy, if that makes sense, might also be a really good medicine for this extreme confused, panic, fearsome, and for some people severely conflictual state. Because even today, as we speak, we are under the influence of this anaretic Cancer full moon. So it's as vengeful, emotionally speaking, as it can possibly get. And the cards reflect this. We have the Nine of Swords reversed, the Empress, the Queen of Cups, and the Death reversed. And perhaps it is the Nine of Swords reversed which is the most impactful card, because for many of us this represents that the mental sphere, the mind, that which certain esoterics call the rational soul, can simply not take this, it cannot process it. It is so very unstable, and perhaps it's exactly the instability that makes it a lot worse. Because, even when we have a constant state, even if that state is sadness, even if it's maybe depression, at least we know what we're dealing with. It's perfectly clear to us what we're going through. But when it's both sad and happy, both optimistic and pessimistic, where we kind of shift from minute to minute, both mentally and emotionally, and sometimes these two are in total conflict with each other, other times they are in total harmony with each other, but in the worst sense possible. This might be a lot for certain vulnerable people, so this is definitely one of those weeks where mental health will be a big problem. And Nine of Swords reversed can many times represent severe anxiety, sleeplessness, or a very restless state where the body wants to rest but the mind won't shut off regardless. So perhaps the worst part of this situation, of this overall energy, is that we just simply cannot be grounded in the present. At the same time, whenever we're not very grounded in the present, many people have this tendency to project the future. It may not be okay today, it may not be very optimistic right now, but there's hope for the future. Anything can happen, right? And this isn't really just wishful thinking. There might be that holiday planned, that very special event, something in the future that the mind can lash onto, which will provide almost a guaranteed satisfaction. So there is a lot to be hopeful for. Yet, unfortunately, this is where the future cannot comfort us either, because it is in maximum uncertainty. So this is very chaotic. And even those people who have this coping skill, this coping mechanism, to just wander off into the future and see all the good, all the positive, all the joy that is one way or another upcoming. This unfortunately will not work because the mind will not go there, because this chaos is perceived by everyone when our collective future is uncertain, when it is even not created yet, when there isn't even a pattern yet. The mind is smart enough to just shut it off. So that only leaves the past, which is not a good idea. So this is where we might feel stuck in a very unusual state of being, where whatever irritates us, whatever troubles us, whatever frustrates us, or any source of dissatisfaction, disappointment, pain, depression, etc., etc., seems eternal, like we might be caught up in a prison that may seem like an episode from our own personal hells. So this is where the Spirit tells us that there is a very good solution. Of course, having faith, having hope, even if it's very hard, that is totally part of the picture. That is a must. That is where, even if we have to force it upon us a little bit, that is basically the very core of resilience. So that is one of the necessary elements that we need to provide for ourselves. But to add to that, to amplify it, to make it a bit more real, the Empress tells us that we need a physical element, serotonin, so the happiness hormone, any kind of satisfaction, any kind of pleasure. And this is actually very unusual when the Spirit tells us that we need to find happiness, comfort, peace in matter, or in the material sphere, or in a very, very down-to-earth way. So we need to tap into the symbolism of the Empress, basically the Venus, the Venusian sphere. Of course, the fact that she is retrograde right now doesn't matter so much. Actually, quite the contrary. It can mean that certain pleasures that we may have been missing out on, or having to sacrifice for work or for whatever purpose, well, right now we need to stop for a second and dedicate some time for pleasure, whatever that means for us personally. Now, another expression of the Empress is feelings, emotion, interhuman connections, so friendships, sharing with other people, allowing yourself to be inspired from any source possible, including if it's a good book, computer game, even escapism if done with diligence and responsibility. And naturally, the lower kind of expression of Venus and the Empress, well, it's physical contact and everything related to that. So this time around, the universe is actually advising us to do anything that might convince the physical expression of the mind, so the brain, to release the happiness hormones in our body and snap us out of the anxiety, snap us out from the emotional wishy-washiness. And this full moon is definitely triggering everything emotional in the book. For some people, traumas. For some people, just mood shifts, but in such a massive way that they might even question themselves if they're bipolar or not. And we have this Queen of Cups next to the Empress, and she is also a very, very powerful symbolism, because she ultimately suggests that we do have power and control and discipline both over our mental sphere and our emotional sphere. And when our physical bodies, the Empress of course, is satisfied enough to give us a moment, to give us a chance to regain control, to be able to look at ourselves, our emotional states, and whatever we are experiencing from the eagle's perch, from the outsider's perspective, as objectively as possible in that moment, in that second when we observe our situation, we are already stepping into the position of our own personal advisor, our own personal counselor, our own personal psychologist, therapist, best friend, parent, whatever it is that we might require right now. And in that moment, when we actually observe ourselves from a detached perspective, so not in the drama, not in hot water, the mind has a tendency to snap out of the excessive worry, the excessive planning, the what ifs. And when the mind, from a very rational and down-to-earth perspective, is aware that we might be just tricking ourselves emotionally from being way too sensitive, hyperactive, impulsive, angry, whatever the full moon may produce for you, well, it will become immediately your ally. It will cooperate because it will see the irrational pattern playing out. So it will tell you, well, look, if you calm down, it's not gonna be as bad as you think it is, feel it is. And even if someone irritates you, stirs you up, you receive shocking communication, shocking news, which might produce this emotional up and down, when it is the mind that actually calms you and not the other way around, where the feeling or faith or whatever calms the mind, it's much more powerful and quicker and instant. The boiling water of emotions inside of us, well, it just stops the simmer, if that makes sense. And we also have the Death card in reverse position, and perhaps this is the most powerful message from all of this, because it tells us that because we are a little bit sabotaged both mentally and emotionally, even spiritually, chances are that some people might have this urgent sense of impulsivity where they want to end a relationship, a contract, or anything that may be correlated to the symbolism of the Death card. Let's end it, let's transform it, let's make it irreversible, let's quit that job, let's burn that contract, let's cord cut immediately, let's not give any other chance for that person who might have offended us or triggered us or whatever to even apologize. Well, we must not end, terminate, or make any permanent decision right now, even if everything in our being tells us, both instinct and intuition, and this is where we should really not trust any inner calling if it wants to make a permanent decision. We should rather just detach, as I said, the eagle's perch, and see exactly why we feel this way and why we are so very, very hyped. Now, of course, this isn't just bad news, because this is just the beginning of the week. After this emotional turmoil, when we start settling down, the Empress and the Queen of Cups reversed can represent deep gratitude for the self, deep gratitude and appreciation for being wise enough, patient enough, and basically responsible enough to control ourselves, because whatever decision, whatever action we halt at the beginning of the week will really, really reward us. So all of this emotion will change, perhaps and quite possibly, to its very opposite as we start getting towards the end of the week. So that is exactly why the Nine of Swords is reversed, because it's not permanent. It is just a moment. It is just, when we're under a powerful but invisible electric shock in any ways and shapes and forms, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So right now, all we can do is soar above, land on a cliff just like an eagle, and observe, watch, and make decisions based on what we see more objectively. And of course, when we are not able to soar, when our wings are not functional, serotonin, whatever that means to you, make yourself happy. Don't allow the mind and the feeling hand in hand to torture you. There is solution. Our physical self, our biological self, so to speak, has a lot of solution to cheer us up, to instantly elevate our moods. So that is exactly what we must do. And that is also one of the expressions of this death reverse, a personal detox, where we detox the scorpionic energy, the frustration, anger, irritation, jealousy, envy, whatever that might afflict us right now. It's like an instant antidote that we just ingest and we start feeling better immediately. And also, by the end of the week, this changes to its opposite. So maybe that is the biggest spark of hope that we can grip onto in the now. So this is today's guidance. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the love, support, and generosity. And perhaps most of all, for allowing me to play a very small part in your journeys. Thank you again. Wish everyone a blessed week. Until next time, bye for now.